There are many irritating potholes along the way. So my simple message to you is, if you want to maintain a positive relationship, we must work at it. Americans must work for it. The Japanese must work for it. Because it is not a relationship based upon family ties. The majority of Americans have family ties with Europe. That's the basis of diplomatic and military power at this time. Ethnically, most Americans differ with the Japanese. Culturally, we differ. Religious, we differ. In physical appearance, we differ. So our friendship and our alliance is not a natural occurrence. We must constantly work at it. And if we do, we can continue to have positive relationship. Otherwise, strange things can happen. I was telling some of my friends, it wasn't too long ago, when Congress, great men of the United States Senate, were debating statehood for Alaska and Hawaii. A great leader among the senators said, I hope my colleagues realize that if Hawaii becomes a state, somebody called Yamamoto may become your colleague sitting next to you. Well, they don't have a Yamamoto, but they got an Inoue now. That wasn't too long ago. The Chen case was a few years ago. 1924, when Californians or Oregonians or Washingtonians of Japanese ancestry, if they were Japanese nationals, could not own land. And it was repealed just a few years ago. And so you can't just look at today's situation and say, don't worry. I am concerned. You have to work at it. And the Japanese realize that also. And that's good. And I hope that all of you would stop and think about what you think about the Japanese. I come from a generation that was a bit different. But we still love our country. I recall when I was 17 and December the 7th came along, I was horrified to learn that about 3 weeks after that, the government of the United States, the government I love, declared all of us to be enemy aliens. Now, today's youth may respond to that and say, oh, big deal. Now I can't serve in the military. Fine, I don't want to serve in the military. For us, it was an insult. And we volunteered. We did our business, and I think we demonstrated that we, Japanese of American ancestry, are just as well as any other American. Just as good. We're just Americans. And so, to all of you who have questions about our relationship, if you think it's a good thing for our nation, you better work at it. I thank you very much, and I've been told that you have many questions to ask.
China is emerging as the leading country in Asia in this Asian century. How will this impact U.S.-Japan relations, the rise of China?
I am chairman of the Defense Appropriations Committee. I'm also chairman of the Commerce Committee that has jurisdiction over all maritime, all air transportation, maritime transportation, railroads, and name it, in charge of all aviation, in charge of anything that relates to the ocean, and it goes on and on. All communication that covers everything from television to satellites to what have you. Today, and in my capacity, this is no secret, I'm privy to classified information of the highest level. And in our circle, we have concluded that it is important for three nations to understand and work together if we are to maintain any stability, any peace in the Pacific area, and that's China, Japan, and the United States. And there are tense moments because in the Chinese you have Taiwan, the Japanese have a military force of limited strength, and they've asked the Americans to have their presence made known there. Right now we are maintaining a balance, but it is no secret that the Chinese rise in the trade and industrial economic area is at a very fast pace, much faster than the Japanese. And militarily, I can tell you just this much. We are presently concerned about North Korea and the potential for nuclear strength and power. The Chinese had nuclear power in the 50s when the Russians were working with them. While the Koreans are trying to develop missile system, the Chinese have this. And so we're aware of that, but at this time we have good understanding. And it is done at every level of our government. For example, I am today the chairman of the China-U.S. Parliamentary Group. We exchange visits with members of the Chinese Congress, if you want to call it that. We're in the process at this moment to develop a similar interparliamentary conference with the Japanese. We realize that this type of relationship is absolutely essential because the most minor of irritants, if not looked upon carefully, could erupt into something devastating. And if anything explodes on this planet, you can't stop it. And so it is in our best interest to make certain that the Chinese and the Japanese and the Americans understand each other. It's a 24-hour business. I hope it works.
Thank you. Never before have Asian countries been as involved in each other's destinies as they are presently. Yet contentious issues remain between Seoul and Beijing and Tokyo. What should be the U.S. role in resolving conflicts and tensions across Asia?
There was a time in history when you could regionalize the world.